Let's talk about this because I don't think this is an easy one for people to get their heads around. When you talk about potentially having to evacuate a city the size of Tehran, some 10 million people, because they're out of water. Talk to me about this problem in general.
Well, I think this is one aspect of the calamity and catastrophe that this regime has imposed on the Iranian people. And this is not because of environmental issues. Iran has always been a semi-arid country. But look, in the last 30 some years, the regime has constructed or in the middle of constructing 650 dams in a country which is semi-arid. And it does not make any sense for anyone who knows anything about environmental issues. And the reason for this is that this is all controlled by IRGC, which is the Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the main entity that basically keeps the regime at bay. So basically what has happened is that a vast part of the Iranian economy has been handed over to IRGC, and they have found this whole issue of constructing dams to be very lucrative, even exporting waters in various forms to be very lucrative, even constructing companies like petrochemical factories, like steel mills in areas which are already short on water. So you can see what we have is a culmination or actually confluence of mismanagement, massive institutional corruption, and basically misguided policies of this regime. And I think one acknowledgement by the Speaker of the Parliament just yesterday is very telling. He said explicitly that 15 years ago, the regime's strategic study institution did a massive study, and they established that lack of water is the main shortcoming of Iran in foreseeable future. And that was 15 years ago. And he said, we did nothing about this. So you are talking about a regime which has not only neglected the most basic needs of the Iranian people, quite contrary, has devoted all of its resources to pursuing, obtaining nuclear weapons, to propping up proxy groups and repressing Iranian people. And today, what's the situation? Everybody only talks about Tehran, which is quite understandable. This is a capital. And you said 10 million, which is a conservative estimate. If you consider suburbs of Tehran, we are talking about somewhere 12 to even as high as 15 million people. But this is not only restricted to Tehran. A lot of major cities in Iran face the same situation today. All over Iran, are facing the same situation, like Shiraz, Isfahan, and so many other big cities. So this is a major, major national calamity, which is all results of this regime's policies.
Yeah. And what are you hearing about the disruptions to daily life? What are some of the stories coming out in terms of how this is impacting people's lives?
Basically in some districts of Tehran, people are not having waters for many hours, particularly at night toward the morning hours. And this obviously makes the life miserable, which has already been miserable for Iranians. As you know, they also suffer from power outages on many hours of the day, and then you compound this with a faltering economy and a runaway inflation. And by that, I mean somewhere from 40 to 60% annually, and on some most basic staples as high as 80%. And you're talking about a country which its currency has never been at such a low value that it's facing today. It has lost about 60% of its value since last year. So if you add all of this, you can see that this has basically made the population very, very restive. And I think just waiting for a spark to pour in the streets again and see massive uprisings. I've seen reports by people in mid-age, even who are supposed to be middle class, like university people, like engineers, who say that we simply cannot continue like this. And I've seen reports after reports about this. And that's obviously what makes the regime very panicky, because they realize that the way things are going, another uprising is simply inevitable.
Is it true that President Pezeshkian has floated the concept of moving the capital, of possibly evacuating Tehran?
Yes, he said that in a public address, and then apparently they took it off from his website, and the news was not allowed to be spread. But he said it. But obviously, everyone knows that this is simply not a very, very practical idea. Where would you transfer and move, 10 to 15 million people? And where are the facilities? And where would you take the capital to? So I think basically, Mike, what you are witnessing and what we are witnessing is a regime which has run its course, which has reached its basically final phase, which has run out of its strategic assets. And this is the domestic situation. You see the situation internationally, you see the situation regionally. So basically, they have run their course. And every aspect you see, it becomes a dead end and a dead end and a dead end. As I said, economy is like this, water is like this, electricity is like this. So, and with no solution in sight. The reason is no solution is that everything has become political. Everything's intertwined with the very existence of this regime. And the regime is in a total impasse. They either have to make huge strategic decisions to change course, which would mean very quickly end of this regime, or continue like this and facing more crisis from all directions.
What, from your perspective, what would cause the citizens, right, to finally say enough's enough? I mean, can they get to that point? I mean, it's often been discussed, right? And we've talked about protests on the streets of Tehran or around the country, and there have been, but you could, and this is not the right way to put it, I'm sure, but it usually comes, for naught, right? There's no end result, right? You just end up with the mullahs in charge and the IRGC maintaining control. I know this is just speculative and to the nth degree, but what changes the dynamic there eventually?
Well, I think, Mike, given the audience that watches your very good podcast and listens to it, they fully realize that overthrowing a regime like the one in Tehran is a culmination of a process, especially when it is done by domestic resistance, by indigenous forces like National Council of Resistance of Iran and its main member organization, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran and its resistance units. And when you are talking about uprising, obviously it's a process. But I think it's very helpful to look at things in a perspective. In the last 7 years, there have been 3 major nationwide uprisings in Iran. Now, obviously they have been suppressed. But if you look at each of them, the next one has been bigger, more pervasive, more inclusive, more demanding, including more strata of the society, including more generations. In 2022, you saw even Gen Zs got involved, as well as middle age and some elderly, and people from all over the country. Obviously, Iran is a huge country. We have people from 300 cities in all 31 provinces involved in uprising. Obviously, the regime responded swiftly, heavy-handedly, killing hundreds and sometimes upwards to 1,500 in a matter of few days, arresting tens of thousands. But it has not stopped people from coming back. The frequency and recurrence is very telling that the dissent is becoming deep-rooted. And I think what's also important is that the regime is facing a growing organized resistance. And I think that's very important because obviously at the end of the day, you need an organized resistance on the ground that will lead the people to the ultimate, result of overthrowing the regime. And that's exactly what is happening. The testament to that is that more and more people are now being arrested on political charges. More and more of them are on death row. Today, as we speak, there are 17 people who are on death row, basically for their affiliation with the, as I said, MEK. And they are as young as 22 and as old as, 60 something. So in that sense, we are moving in that direction. People of Iran has stated time and again that they want to get rid of this regime. Obviously, the regime has ruled with a very, very brutal force. But at the same time, if you look at what has happened since last year, the other pillars that this regime has survived have also been severely beaten. I'm talking about the regime's support for proxy groups, and that has been severely beaten and weakened since last year. I think the best case was the overthrow of Assad regime, which was the linchpin of the regime's regional strategy. And you saw what happened on the nuclear issue. So basically, we are coming to a head where all the pillars that this regime relied on for decades and decades are coming to an end. And as you know, the overthrow of a regime like this comes very quickly. Dictators always have this perception that they're in power forever until the final hour, and then that they're gone. And you have seen this time and again in history. And I think we are heading to that direction. So there is no question about people's desire for change, but obviously other factors can help to expedite or to slow down the process. And I think now more and more factors are coming in, which indicate we are coming to the finale in a foreseeable future.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.